Now here's one thing that concerns me slightly. If I end up using this one, okay, this one was brand new. It was the whole setup. It was just like this one here. But I've taken this tank off twice now because I've had a heck of a time tightening this up. And the first time I started tightening up these bolts on the sides before I realized, that's not going to do anything. Those 3 bolts there are not going to do anything to tighten up this rubber gasket here. You know what I mean? This rubber gasket is only going to be tight with this nut. It has nothing to do with these 3 bolts. These 3 bolts only have to do with this rubber gasket here when you get ready to flush your toilet. Does that make sense? This gasket's on the outside of your tank. The water's inside the tank. So the only way the water from the tank can come out into the bowl is if this gasket here is leaking with the water seeping through there rather than this one, okay? But I was tightening up these, and I tighten them, and incidentally, you don't want to tighten those too tight, because if you do, you could have a chance of cracking this tank or the rim edges of your bowl where these bolts connect to, okay? And the interesting thing with this is, see, it's just a long sleeve, and that goes up through here, up to the other side. There's no washer that you put on it, but when you tighten the nut down, you're putting pressure on here. So then it naturally wants to fold out the top, and it pushes it like that, and there's your rubber gasket top bit for your bolt, and then your bolt head sticks on there. See, another way you can do it. Hope I'm not confusing you. Just keep watching. It'll get more understandable the more I go. Okay. I mean, if I didn't use this whole area, if I wanted to attach this whole tank with a different configuration than this, like one screw here, one bolt there, I get just individual bolts, and I can put this through like that, and that goes inside the tank, and then it comes out, okay, and then I attach that to the bowl. So there's different ways to do it, okay? So that's another thing I want you to know. Is there only one way to do this? Heavens no. There's a couple different ways. That's why I got more things to show you here. Before I get you all confused, I want to finish the thought that I was on with this here on why I don't know that if I'm going to decide to use this type of system, I might end up putting the brand new one on here, because I've tightened this thing so tight that this is mashed down tighter than I would have wanted it, and it almost is having a tendency to pull out on one bolt head. On the top of the tank is almost touching the porcelain. And so if I do that, because I've taken it off twice, now I'm going to put it on a third time and do it again, I would just switch it and put this on. Okay, that's why I brought this. But I just don't know if I'm going to do that. Now, back to this here for a second. Okay, I'm going to take this nut off of here, and that washer goodie, this washer here. And see, before, like I said, I didn't have a new one of these. Nobody told me about this at the store. Well, if you're going to put it this way, you've got to use one of these. You've got to get one. If you can't get it with this, and if they don't sell them separate, go and try to find a gasket. Here's a gasket and washer seal. And then I found another gasket in another one that I picked up at the store too. And that's how I found the gasket. Like I was saying, if I only use this, I don't necessarily have to use this gasket, right? But I could use this. So sometimes when you go to the store, you really have to think about what it is you need to get. Don't just zero in on one way, because sometimes I'll go to the store thinking, okay, this is how I'm going to do it, and I look and oh shoot, they don't have that, and then I tone out, like, okay, I can't do it. I guess I have to go to another store and try to find the part. Okay, I can't find the part there, I can't do it. You got to start thinking, how else can I do it? You know what I mean? You may do it slightly different than you were planning on doing the first way. But you see, I was, because I didn't have this, I tried to put this old one on. And now you see I just ripped that all up. You know, I can't rip this with my hand. That's how stiff this is. Alright? And I tried putting that back in, but because it was wet, it was sitting in there, and my nut was just sliding on there, it was grabbing, and it wasn't really doing anything. It was too pliable to keep this tight and to pull this tree in tight enough to get the seal here. You know what I mean? That's why on most toilets you don't even really see this. Okay? And what I'm thinking, just because this was on here from before, I don't have to do it this way. You know, the more I thought about this, it was like, I don't have to do it that way. You know, I'm still questioning whether or not I can get this nut tight enough with my channel locks, and I'm here all by myself. I may have to take two hands, really crank down on it, but I don't want to mess up the edge of this rubber here either. You know, if you saw the video that I did about taking this off, I had a heck of a time taking the old nut off. I had to actually cut the rim off of this rubber gasket to get it off, and that was okay because that's where it was leaking. You know, but I can't very well do that to put it on, now can I? How else are we going to fix that if we don't use this type of rubber gasket? Do you know how? I'm going to take this off, and we'll figure out if there is, in fact, another way to do that. Now see, this is already starting to form that little pucker at the top. Do you see that little bit of pucker there? That wasn't there before. When you suck in the bolt, see how it creates that pucker? Well, this pucker here is right at the tip. You see that? And so there was hardly anything between that and the head of the nut of the bolt. Where? Right here. Let's see if I can get it in there. See, it was pushing down like that. And I was almost at the end. That's why, because I tightened this down way too tight. Because I thought that's where the leak was coming from, or that would help fix the leak. My loss, again, is your gain. So that's why, if I end up using this type of assembly down here, you know, I'll probably need to use the new one. I just learned a valuable lesson there. And you don't have to go through that because you watched my video. Hey, how cool is that? Or did I do that on purpose for your benefit? You'll never know, will you?